For inside, I mean, I think we were playing really hard. I think we went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle, but...
Y'all mad because that corn-fed Iowa girl busting y'all ass. Y'all said she too weak. She can't do this. She lead the WNBA in assists. She cooking. Let her cook. Let her cook.
Rookie of the Year race is over. She ended that Friday night. Not that she wasn't in the league to begin with, but she ended that Friday night when she dropped 31 on the Chicago Sky when they were blowing them out, okay? She ended that Friday night. Angel Reese and her Chicago Sky. But Angel Reese is no longer a Rookie of the Year potential winner. That's over. It's going to Caitlin Clark. But what I tell y'all, we just have to understand that when a transformational figure enters the fray, you got to pause and then isolate and compartmentalize and give them the love that they're due. And in this case, it belongs to Caitlin Clark.
From the start of the 2024 WNBA season, it was clear that female basketball fans will have a chance to witness something of historical importance. The main reason for that was the excitement surrounding the incoming rookie class, which was believed to be the strongest in years. The class was regarded as top-heavy, with several players predicted to have immediate impact on the next level, starting with the top pick, Caitlin Clark, from Iowa. After she was selected by the Indiana Fever, the next few picks were also used on high-profile players such as Cameron Brink, who went second overall to Los Angeles Sparks, and Camila Cardoso from the national champion South Carolina, who was picked at number 3 by the Chicago Sky. Another former NCAA champion and big college star Angel Reese slipped to number 7 and joined Cardoso on the Sky roster to form a powerful inside tandem. It was clear that several strong contenders would be in the race for the Rookie of the Year award, but the media attention was largely focused on Caitlin Clark before the season started. After all, Clark was a 2-time College Player of the Year, broke a scoring record that stood for decades, and came into the league riding an unprecedented wave of popularity. However, experienced observers correctly predicted that as a point guard with a slight build, Clark might need some time to adjust to the way the game is played at the pro level, opening some space for one of the front court players picked after her to mount a run at the prestigious Rookie of the Year award. All of that created a sense of anticipation that mesmerized the public and dramatically boosted viewership numbers. As strange as it may sound, but a handful of first-year players instantly became the headliners, and the award gained an outsized importance that is usually not associated with Rookie of the Year title. The way the season started was every sports writer's dream. Clark was a bit slow out of the gate, which opened just enough space for a contender to emerge. That happened to be a player that had a huge rivalry with the Iowa star in college. None else but the hard-fighting, trash-talking, swagger-dripping center Angel Reese. The two incoming rookies were very familiar with each other from the NCAA tournament, and their battles in the WNBA were merely a continuation of a competition that gripped the entire basketball world during the past 2 years. Reese quickly became an elite rebounder and inside scorer for Chicago, announcing her candidacy for the Rookie of the Year award and reigniting the discussion on who has the highest ceiling. This emboldened the ranks of Caitlin Clark doubters, who used the occasion to argue Clark is not all she was made out to be. That's not to say Caitlin Clark was disappointing early in the season. She immediately became the alpha woman on the Fever, despite the presence of several highly talented players, including the 2023 top draft pick overall Aaliyah Boston, and she put up good counting numbers, although with questionable efficiency. However, the strong start of the season by Reese brought about direct comparisons between the two, even if they are fundamentally different players. Caitlin Clark is a shooter with unlimited range and a capable facilitator in space that knows how to find open teammates when defenses collapse on her. By contrast, Reese is 3 inches taller and far more athletic, doing most of her damage on the boards and close to the basket. The fact that Clark is a soft-spoken white woman from Middle America, while Reese is an epitome of an outspoken black baller, only added intrigue to an already fascinated contrast. Looking back at their early exploits, it's not hard to see why Rookie of the Year race was quickly reduced to a 2-woman contest, especially after another fan favorite Cameron Brink tore up her ACL in June, forcing her to miss the rest of the season. Reese quickly established herself as one of the top rebounders in the game and a pillar of a physical defense for the Chicago Sky, averaging a double-double and leading her team to moderate success. On the other hand, Clark took the league lead in assists and gradually started making a lot of her patented deep three-pointers, albeit with too many turnovers and without proper connection with her young but talented team. In other words, both young players continued building on their NCAA resumes and took their battles to a more prominent stage. With both Clark and Reese showing clear signs of future stardom, the public was left divided regarding who is the frontrunner for the Rookie of the Year award. Despite the general consensus that Clark has more talent long-term, many observers, including big-name sports commentators and former players, believed that Reese could snatch the first-year accolade from her nemesis. The resulting debate was quite fierce, at times steering away from the events on the court and into the realm of cultural and racial divisions that are so prevalent in the U.S. today. With the contest being so close, direct matchups between the Indiana Fever and Chicago Sky presented a golden opportunity for either player to distinguish herself and claim supremacy. The first 3 games between these teams were extremely competitive, with 2 of them decided by a single point. The Fever won 2 games and the Sky claimed 1 victory, but the matchups will be remembered more for the rough style of play than the final score. Chicago Sky players in particular decided that the best way to throw Caitlin Clark off her game is to body her up, resulting in 2 flagrant fouls that were quite outrageous. While this tactic isn't unique to Chicago and was practiced by several other teams, it was at its most obvious in the matchups between Reese and Clark. It largely backfired, as Clark seemed unperturbed and simply continued doing her job while the media backlash was intense. Everyone seems to have an opinion about the Reese versus Clark rivalry, and with every incendiary quote on the web and every disrespectful move on the court, the buzz just continues to grow. Of course, fans tuning in to find out the latest news about the Rookie of the Year race is great for the WNBA, which struggled to attract significant fan interest and sell tickets for years. The whole situation is reminiscent of a phase the NBA went through some 45 years ago, when 2 stellar rookies, one white and one black, arrived to save a league that had an acute image problem and little exposure in the national media. We are talking about Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, who are widely credited with setting up the foundations of the global media juggernaut that is the modern NBA. There are numerous parallels. Magic and Bird met in the NCAA finals much like Reese and Clark, and they entered the league as fully developed players who were instantly among the brightest stars. While we can clearly see shades of Magic versus Bird in the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year race, there are also some notable differences. For one, the 1979 and 1980 NBA Rookie of the Year contest wasn't particularly close. Larry Bird was 3 years older than Johnson, and he ran away with the award, winning 63 out of the possible 66 first-place votes. He even finished 4th in MVP voting, a rare feat for a first-year player in any era. While Magic made up for it in the playoffs, where he won the 1980 NBA championship and the Finals MVP award, his regular season numbers were inferior to Bird's in all categories except assists. Another key difference is the amount of media coverage in the pre-internet era, and as much as the 2 male stars managed to capture the imagination of the nation, they were largely able to avoid non-stop scrutiny by fans and experts alike. That's not an option today, when an army of both professional and amateur journalists works around the clock to bring us total insight into the lives of basketball stars. Thus, we can expect the impact of Clark and Reese on the fortunes of WNBA to be even more amplified by constant blogging, live streaming, and commenting that wasn't possible in the late 70s. As the season progressed and the Fever started climbing in the standings, the stakes became even higher, and the arguments in favor of Reese began to lose steam. There was one way for Reese to make up ground, and perhaps even the odds, and that was the last scheduled game between the Fever and the Sky on August 31st. With one final chance to impress Rookie of the Year voters, Angel needed to dominate, and Chicago needed to win in order for her candidacy to be revived. Well, let's just say that never materialized. Chicago started well, and through stout defense and sharp shooting, managed to build a double-digit lead after the first 7 minutes. But it turned out this early outburst was the pinnacle of the game for the Sky. Caitlin Clark pushed the ball in transition and racked up a couple of assists before burying a very deep 3 to tie the game early in the second quarter, and then swishing another to give Fever the lead. With some help from Kelsey Mitchell, Clark maintained control of the game, and the Fever took a slight lead into the halftime break. Things only went downhill for the Sky from there, with the lead systematically growing throughout the second half and reaching 20 points midway through the fourth quarter. With the game practically decided, the Sky decided to leave Angel Reese in the game long after the Fever pulled out their starters, and feature her offensively in order to keep her double-double streak going. Despite this, Caitlin Clark massively outplayed her foe, finishing with a new personal best of 31 points to go with 12 assists and 5 three-pointers. Meanwhile, despite the extra minutes played specifically for stat padding, Angel Reese was limited to just 10 points and 11 rebounds, both under her season averages. In other words, In a game that was widely seen as a boss fight for the Rookie of the Year crown, Clark turned in one of her finest games of the season and led her team to a convincing win, while Reese labored for most of the night and failed to significantly affect the outcome. To make things worse, the string of hard hits from previous games continued in the final match, with Sky players committing 2 more flagrant fouls on Clark. A particularly egregious foul was committed by Diamond DeShields, who just barreled into Clark with her shoulder and knocked her straight to the floor. The referee ruled that it was a non-basketball play, and after watching the video, it's hard to come to any other conclusion. DeShields was incensed that Clark was carving up her team and lost control of her emotions for a moment. In total, Chicago Sky was responsible for 4 out of 5 flagrant fouls on Clark during the entire season, which is simply too much to be a coincidence. It's easy to understand why Chicago Sky players were so frustrated with their performance, they started acting shamefully. The loss pretty much ended Angel Reese's bid for Rookie of the Year and pushed the Sky to the brink of dropping out from the playoff picture. At the same time, Fever climbed to over 50% on the season, the first time they had a winning record since 2019. The contrast is even greater if we consider just the record after the Olympic break, with Fever going 6-1 and Sky losing 7 out of 8 games in the same span. While both teams could still make the playoffs, it's clear which one has the momentum right now, and the play of Fever's prized rookie is the main reason for that. Both individually and on the team level, this game was a vindication of Caitlin Clark's undeniable talent, and with just a couple of weeks left in the season, she is firmly in the driver's seat in the race to be declared the best rookie in 2024. Perhaps most impressively, she won the game by being very unselfish and trusting the rest of the team to make shots, as evidenced by her assist total. Then we have the highlights. Several of Caitlin's three-pointers were launched far beyond the line and were reminiscent of Steph Curry's soul-crushing bombs. Meanwhile, Angel Reese looked like a mortal human and was frequently thwarted by the defense even as she had the ball in good position inside the paint. The contrast was highlighted in the post-game press interviews where Angel Reese had the audacity to complain about referees after her teammates played against Clark as if they were playing American football and not basketball. Somehow, Reese failed to see her own team's transgressions and felt slighted after the game while completely ignoring that the game was an ugly blowout. Here is what she had to say to the media after an embarrassing performance in a head-to-head matchup against Clark.
I mean, for inside, I think we were playing really hard. I think we went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle.
Criticizing the refs is a sure sign of a player who refuses to take responsibility for her mistakes and looks for an external explanation. With such an attitude, she can't be a true leader for her team, and this surely negatively affects the chemistry and contributes to losing. On top of that, her assessment doesn't correspond to reality, and it's impossible to get better unless you realize what is holding her back and where exactly things went south. For her part, Caitlin Clark gave another mature statement that heaved praise on the entire team and emphasized teamwork. Not to mention, she did it immediately after the game without much time to gather her thoughts and prepare. Despite the context, she gave a masterclass on how to talk to the media after a big win. Deflect individual praise to teammates, don't gloat, admit the errors, and keep things focused on basketball. The Fever coaches and PR people couldn't write a better quote for her than this one.
Minus the first 6 minutes of the game, I thought we were really good. We played sound defense, and other than the first 6 minutes, I thought we executed well. We pushed the pace. I thought we played with good pace all night. We knew when to push the ball in transition. We knew when to pull it out. So I'm just proud of this group. I thought we battled.
Notably, Caitlin didn't call out Diamond DeShields or any other Sky players despite enduring plenty of physical contact from them. She correctly pointed out that the game turned when Fever started playing an up-tempo style while staying disciplined and patient with the ball. Caitlin's fans and big media personalities weren't so forgiving and immediately started talking about a continuation of the trend. The consensus is that Chicago Sky players are pulling off dirty moves because they know they can't handle Clark's abilities. While it was DeShields rather than Reese that drew the most ire online, such a sentiment is devastating for her standing in the Rookie of the Year race. That's why it's not an overstatement that the August 31st game effectively ended the debate, and looking back, it could be viewed as the moment when Clark finally started receiving the recognition she deserves. There are some very high-profile personalities in Caitlin's corner, none more prominent than LeBron James. Greatness recognizes greatness, and James made it no secret that he is a big admirer of Clark as a player. Following the one-sided game against Chicago, LeBron was quick to needle anyone who is still doubting that Clark is the real deal. It took only a 4-word tweet to do that, as he simply posted, "Caitlin Clark, hi haters." Another big voice in the media space came to Clark's defense and addressed all the flagrant fouls she was exposed to. Former NFL player and sports commentator Shannon Sharpe is very outspoken about things that he feels strongly about. Following the latest Fever Sky game and all the rough play he saw, he was obliged to present us with some shocking, flagrant foul stats in his flamboyant style.
17% of the WNBA flagrant fouls have been committed against Clark. The Chicago Sky were responsible for 80% of the flagrant fouls committed against Clark. But you know what, Ocho? It's the great white hype. There's nothing, Shannon. You just want to support that white girl. She busting y'all ass.
Not everyone is joining in this chorus, as the haters LeBron mentioned are real and still very active. Former WNBA star Sheryl Swoopes is a certified member of the Anti-Clark Club, and she found a way to get back into the spotlight with another dubious quote. She addressed Diamond DeShields on social media right after the game to offer words of encouragement. "Head up, kid. Hate will not win. You are covered and there ain't nothing these evil people can do about it. All love for you." Swoopes has long been on the record supporting Angel Reese for Rookie of the Year, but this role reversal is really weird. Consoling the aggressor while ignoring the person that was mercilessly fouled all night isn't really in the spirit of sportsmanship, especially considering that DeShields committed 5 fouls in just 12 minutes of playtime. This is why this tweet aged really poorly and caused a lot of angry responses in the media. To step away from all the media noise, Caitlin Clark's numbers are really the best argument we need. She has already broken rookie records for points, assists, and three-pointers made, and she could conceivably break the all-time assists record before the season is over. It's true that Reese also broke the all-time record for total rebounds and had an impressive streak of games with 20-plus boards. But Clark is literally dominating across 3 essential categories. Based on every metric, she had an unprecedented season for a rookie, and it may be just a hint of things to come. She seems destined to rewrite the history books and move the boundaries of what we expect from female basketball players. Clark's presence on the court is felt at all times, while the same couldn't be said for Angel Reese. It's fair to wonder whether these two are actually in the same superstar tier or not, and if Clark could leave her rival in the dust over the next few years. There were already some voices saying that Caitlin Clark should receive MVP consideration this year, but this is probably premature, and her stats still can't touch what A'ja Wilson is doing for the Las Vegas Aces this year. Caitlin's time is coming, and it's highly likely that she will win multiple MVP awards over the course of her career, just not right now. It's unclear whether Reese has such a future, although she is a perennial all-star at the very least. If you need any further proof that Clark will be voted the best rookie, just consider that her odds on online sportsbooks are dwarfing those of any other competitor, Reese included. So instead of continuing a debate that's been clearly decided, we should look toward the future with an open mind. The addition of this year's crop of college players has certainly raised the quality level in the WNBA, and for the first time, the world is noticing. As these players mature and their teams become true contenders, the interest should only grow and hopefully expand to the whole league. With interest comes marketing dollars, which translate into higher pay for the players, better conditions for training and travel, and an ability to attract the best players beyond the United States. All of that happened to the NBA in the 1980s and could be happening for the WNBA before our eyes. It's not a stretch of imagination to say that Caitlin might be the harbinger of a new era of female basketball and a catalyst of rapid growth for the WNBA. That is true both in terms of her style of play, which is very close to the contemporary NBA style, and the level of popularity previously reserved only for male players. In that sense, the duel for the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year was just an appetizer, and we are still waiting for the main dish to be served. Judging by what we've seen so far, it should be absolutely fresh and delicious.